Okay, so you can check the project progress at a sprint level or at phases level, right? Sprint also by task or by story points, right? And if you have deliverables, you can create deliverables. So if you want to track it from a deliverable perspective, that you can do, and milestones if you have created, right? It again depends like how do you want the reporting. And obviously you can like once, let's suppose you have come here and you might see that okay, probably I have not created deliverables or milestone. So you can always go back to your project and you create your milestones, and then the reporting will again, it will show you with that respect, right? It's not like it's if you've done it once, you can't go back and see it, right? Task distribution again, all the tasks within that project, right? You can see depending how you want to, from a scope perspective, or from again, time box or milestone, whether you want to see it from the prepare phase or on a sprint level or at milestones level, right? Depending how you want to see. Okay, I want to see, okay, only for now, maybe I'm in just prepare phase. So what are the tasks I have created for prepare phase? Then what is the status of those tasks, right? Or how where we stand, right? And again, you can choose different time. You have different filters, priority, responsible, work streams, tasks, right? So this you can do. You can create your own, like in any of these pages, you can create your own views, right? And you can create multiple views, right? You could be, okay, then we have requirement distribution, okay. Similar to task distribution, you again want to see, within your project, whatever requirements are there, what is the status, depending, depending on the status of the requirement or probably assigned to teams, right? You will have a bunch of teams, when you are in a full-fledged project, right? Or priority, you would set priority to your requirement, right? Responsible, right? So all those different views you can see here, right? Just a quick refresh. Then you can do a task trend analysis like with charts, right? Just to give you so these are there just like at least the task trend analysis and burn up chart is specifically for like if you want to use this itself in a meeting, right? For presentation rather than having a pulling data and then preparing something and then putting it in an Excel or a PPT. You probably can use this trend analysis and burn up chart app to show it directly, live data to the customer, right? It could, right? So it's more of from a from a reporting a presentation perspective. You could have your weekly cadence call or for daily calls also. You can use obviously if you're using if you have set the process like that at daily also you can use it, right? So this you can use. So these two specifically, especially like task trend analysis and the burn up chart, especially for like if you want to use it as for a presentation rather than preparing it for a doc or documentation or Excel, you can do this, right? So yeah, we were at solution process traceability. Okay, so there is a thing which we have not covered is probably the indirect assignments, which okay again it's solution process traceability because as we started, so your solution process or the business process will be the the entry point or the starting point in your project, right? From there only everything will start from your requirement gathering, your workshops, right? So in Cloud ALM, you have a separate tile or a separate tab where it will gives you the traceability from the solution process level. Like from a solution process, you want to say okay, for that solution process, it will give you a view from the highest level to the lowest level possible, right? So the highest level would be the solution business process, the requirement, right? And the lowest level would probably be the lowest entity would probably be the test case text execution or the feature status, right? That where for that particular solution process the particular test case and the text execution how it has failed, successful, what is it, right? So it gives you the complete traceability from the highest level, from the like scoping till the end, like deployment phase of the deployment status of the feature, right? And deployment feature is always dependent on the status of your text execution test plan, right? How if the test plan is successful, test execution is successful, obviously then you will go ahead with your feature deployment, correct? So in that way it gives you the complete visibility, right? Any question, anything here? Okay. Yes. So again here if you see you can even like and solution process could probably be obviously it would be like your requirement user story, the different entities will get linked. You see everything is mentioned here: requirement, user story, project, task, document, right? You probably are going to do documentation at the solution process level only, right? At the business process level, like if we compare it to any tool or the solution manager, right? So there the documentation happens at the business process level. Even test cases are assigned to this business process level solution, which we have in Cloud ALM, right? In fact, only for now, only you can only have a relation or have a direct relation with a solution process only for a test case, test plan, right? You don't have it for the entity like feature or user story, right? Or you can't, which probably. So it gives you whatever entity, if you think, means apart from that, probably you don't think there would be, there are any other entities which should, or you want to have a view, from a cell, like if you take the highest node as solution process, this is the, these are the sub nodes or the lowest nodes which would be possible, coming down from the solution process, like the requirement you'll be creating as your workshops, right? During your workshops, once you have created your requirement, you are going to break it down in user stories or project task, right? For documentation, if you are using document app, right, where you are creating record, you are creating an entry for each of the documentation you are maintaining for the particular business process, right? And then the test preparation for each of these business processes, right? And the test plans would vary, from FUT, SAT, or UAT, regression, whatever kind of testing you have. So all of these will have a direct relation, or will you can link it to the solution process, right? And finally, the test execution. Since the test plan is has a relation with the solution process, so your test execution will also have a relation, or right. So all the entities, all the objects, you have to have a view, right? That okay, you
Concept.
could be right, from my project deliverable, it is like I have to deliver this custom process or whatever is that to the customer. So these are the objects, or the entities, requirement, user story, project task, document, which would combinedly give me that. Once these combinedly come, we complete each one after the other. Eventually, then we'll be able to deliver the project or deliver, for that particular project, right? For all business process will follow more or less the same cycle. Like there would not be any deviations in that matter. Even if let's suppose there's a business process or solution process which doesn't require any customization, client wants what the SAP standard is still, you would create a requirement that, okay, just to document that, okay, we'll set set up the standard, configuration. Even for that, there would be probably very little or very little less effort, but probably you are going to create a user story for that, okay, just to set it up, right? Or you are going, and obviously documentation will be there, right? Again, you'll follow the standard FSD because you are using a standard solution provided by SAP. So again, the FSD would cover have, but it would be there, right? You will have to have it, right? FSD, TSD, right? Because documentation, maybe all of these have a life cycle, probably requirement, user story, project test preparation, test. Probably, if you say in a way, have a life cycle till till the project life cycle. But documentation probably have a longer life cycle, in the sense, even once the project moves into maintenance AMS phase, also people will rely on the the documentation part to understand how this process is set up, that if there's an issue, they have to debug it, fix it. So probably they will come back to how the business process has been set up, and from where they can see it, like from the function specific and documentation, from the technical specification documents, the configuration items, the design document, right? So in that way, probably documents have a life cycle which which exceeds the, or which surpasses the life cycle of the project itself. Because project may probably test execution, test cases, feature, user story probably will I'm not saying they won't have relevance, but probably you don't have to again come back once the project has gone live and you have moved to your AMS phase, right? You're in support phase. Probably it won't matter even if they are not available. But document probably will have or will surely have will be needed in your AMS phase also, just to when the AMS team is working, they have stuck with an issue, or they want to do an obviously during AMS also some enhancements come up, that customers want, okay, this process needs to change, some change needs to be done in the process, or maybe a mini project, something on that line, a change request, right? So then also they'll have to go back to the, from there they will understand. So they will understand how the process set from your documentation. So again, documentation becomes important in that matter. Okay, so that's why it has, you can see everything here. Okay, now if requirements, so if I want. So see, I clicked on requirement. So I have requirement overview. So if I go and requirement overview, so it will take me to the requirement tab. Okay, requirement tab. So I can see what are the requirements, right? How all the requirements it will show. Okay. Now if I go back, it takes me here back. Okay. Now if I click and I click on requirement traceability. Okay. So you have now only the user the requirement, and now you can get there is one user story for your requirement, one user story, one project type, all the requirements I need in realization. Like this, you can see what are the different things attached for my current requirement. And once you are in a project, you will have no for all of these probably there you will have obviously. And again, right now I can see only three or probably there are six requirements I have created for this project, right? But in any given point of time, you will have multiple, probably more than 100 requirements to work with, right? Even for your work stream, there will probably be, around, depending on it, there would be 20, 30, 40 requirements. And to keep a, follow up on each or keep a track of each requirement would be difficult if you have to, again, because they will be assigned within your team, or even if you have to keep track of your own requirements or for your team. So this is a good place. Like you can completely track it. Okay, how at least from a requirement perspective, how where it is, right? User story. If I click on user story, it's showing me that. Yeah. So there's one user story which is open. Okay. So I can see okay how many user stories are for the requirement, which then I can go from here, the user story test. Okay. So it you can drill down to the whichever view more or less you want to see, right? For that matter, project task. Okay, so you want to say okay, what is the project task, where it is, or why it is, right? So you don't have to go to the task and then find out your project, your requirement. If you come here directly in the requirement traceability, you can just see the overview of all your systems, of all your entities which are linked to the requirement through this analytics, right? Now, if you see this project task has two subtasks. They are open, right? If I click on it, okay, I'll add it. Okay, and it'll change the status. Probably done. Okay. It'll save and close it. So subtask, you can like complete it. So you will see the percentage like completion. Okay. So the subtask completion is 50% because there are two subtasks. One I have one is done, right? So 50%. So like that, you can like come down from there only from the solution process to your requirement. No, within your requirement, you don't have to go back from one place. So it has gives you traceability, right? My solution process got broken down into what requirements, right? And then what users to what is linked, right? And then that requirement has how many user stories, how many project tasks. Then within user story or project there will be subtask, right? So it will can take you down or you can take it down to the lowest level, right? Possible, right? So right. Others I don't have any user story, right? So probably I'll go and see okay why there is no user story. Okay. Probably I'll create a user story from here only, right? If I say okay, no user story has been created or maybe it was missed, right? So I can create a demo. Okay. I can create. Okay. Now see, I'm creating the user story within the through the requirement. So it has already taken the requirement, it is already linked, right? Now, if you want to, and I can obviously change it doesn't make sense to change it, but if I change it, it will get linked to that other requirement, right? So like that also you can do, right? You want to give efforts, right? That hours, current way, story points you want to give, right? Probably 20. Yes. So again, if you want to remove some of the tags, right? Probably I'll remove the demo tag and this tag, right? So all of these you can do, right? So again, solution process. Okay. So probably the requirement was the J58, right? The requirement was for J50, so probably I should assign J58. So let's assign J58, right? So like this, and save it. Right, I have it, right? So I have created. If I go back again one step back, so now I'm again back to the analytics. So you see the one user story is there, right? So it is in progress, all right? Let me. So again, it will show you open how many in progress blocked for this particular requirement, right? And then from here also you can go to probably we are task overview, right? So then open task for my project. We have not probably we don't have any task. We user story traceability, right? So for this particular user story, sorry, yeah, one sec. Let me try again. Okay, so this user story, what is the requirement to which this is attached? No, this is the requirement to which it is attached. The requirement is in realization phase, right? There is no feature or subtask or test preparation test execution assigned to this user story, right? So like this, you can see it, right? From a user story level, you can drill down from the requirement to the user story, right? If I go back again, right? So we started from here and we could go till from requirement traceability to user story traceability. So you know how we can drill down, right? From the solution process to the requirement. So you can have a view from a solution process, what all things, what entities are linked and what is the status of requirement, right? You can have a like in a single pane, you have the complete view, and from there only, and from here only, you can navigate to maybe you want to see more details about requirements, right? Or you want to see it from like, okay, for that user story, what is the status, right? So you can open from here only. I can open the user story from here, right? It will take me to user story. If you want to make some changes, create a subtask, you can do that, right? And then if I go back, just this back button will take me to the earlier screen, right? Or if I want to see the requirement, right? So this is my requirement, right? So again, it is approved, right? So the requirement is approved. Okay. So if let's suppose, okay, approval is approved. Now it realize in testing, maybe it's done, maybe it's in testing, the requirement. It's approved now. Probably it is confirmed. So depending how you want to, we do it. And change the requirement status has changed. So I'm back to analytics page. So you see the requirement is confirmed. Now if I go back again, you see the requirement status is confirmed, right? So like this, you can drill down, right? Okay. So like this, you'll get, I created the demo subtask. So now I got a notification, right? So since we still don't have, email notifications or any the workflow related to that where you can get notified. This notification section is the one where you will get notified of, if anything gets assigned to you or some changes are done to a thing you're a, responsible person, right? So all the information which ideally, you get email like for approval, okay, or like in solution manager, you can have set up, emails notification for each step, right? If you are part of the, either you are the developer connected in some way or the change manager or for that matter anything, then you will get, you will get like even for requirement that gets approved. You can set who will get, you either you can activate and whether first email notification will be sent out, second to whom it will be sent out, at what, no, at what condition. So those all things you can do, right? At what condition the email will be sent, and then there also in different condition email needs to be sent out to different people. So that is still not there in cloud. Probably I'm not sure if it is going to come, but yeah, but anything which is related to your work or gets assigned to you and there's changes, you will once you log in, you will see, not from the last time you logged in. Once you again log in, it will show you in the notification tab every change which has happened till from the last time, or all the information you which has happened since last time you have logged in or you were logged in into the cloud ALM tenant. Okay. So it's fine. Now from solution traceability, we'll go to requirement traceability. It's more or less the same thing, right? Which we had shown, but it is again from the requirement perspective, right? So you have a requirement. These are the requirements, right? If I click on a requirement, so like this again, you can filter out by scope, solution, requirement status, feature, right? User story, project, task, correct? All of you can see concept. So if you open one requirement, you can do the edit here itself, right? If there's any, you don't have to go. You can see, okay, maybe I'll change the status. It's approved in approval. So it's in testing. Okay, save and close. So this also you can use for this your keeping all the items updated, right? And not only for reporting purpose, but because as I said, right, every entity is linked to like the requirement is in testing when obviously the feature has been moved to testing, right? Only then the requirement is in testing, right? So here from here you will have that view, right? That okay, for my requirement, okay, we don't have a feature, but if there was a feature, so we'll see, okay, the feature, whoever was responsible, developer or whoever is was responsible. So you see, okay, the feature is handed over to testing. So now you can, then okay, I can change my status of my user story, sorry, my requirement to in testing, right? Then it is the correct status, right? So like, and once again, again, when, again, if there is a defect or like you can always go back and do it in realization again, move it. But at least for the, first time you, at least you can change, say, okay, it has moved till testing. So the first iteration of testing is happening, right? So after that, probably if it is going through the defect, again, maybe the test fade, and again you're going through the defect cycle. So probably you can keep it here in testing only, because even the defect life cycle is part of the test management. It's not like a new piece is getting, it's just that the bug is getting fixed. So you can in a way say that it is part of the test cycle, right? So then you can keep can keep the requirement in testing also, right? So this is the another uses of these is like you can see the complete view of all the entities which are linked to your requirement or user story. So you can have, and you can change the status accordingly from here on. You don't have to go anywhere. So you don't have to keep your requirement name and the user story, and you don't have to just the project within that your work, your solution process, or and it would be the solution process, right? Once you select it, you will get it, right? You'll get the all the features, all the requirement, and then you can check one by one. Okay, so you can check, okay, feature has handed over to testing, so I can move my requirement to in testing, or my user story, if I go to user story. So again, my user story is open in progress, right? So it is probably it will be in progress when the testing is still going on, right? So from here only you can change the status that, okay, user stories are open, but no, we have started working on it, so you can change the status, that save and close it, right? So just one more. So again, see all of these, like just to reiterate, all of these user story requirement, project task feature, they have this. There are many fields in it, right? Solution process work stream, and none of these fields means all the fields are optional, right? So obviously it has to be decided as as a best practice which you are going to follow in your project, right? That what all fields we should mandatory fill up, right? Because then it helps in the reporting part. It could be that you don't want to go by scoping, but probably you want to go by the work streams, right? So probably then you, as a best practice which you want to follow in a project, so whatever entity, whatever object, be it a user story feature you create, you probably will put the work stream. You have to select the work stream responsible person, right? Responsible, and probably involved parties would be like, right? So that this thing has to be, again, because everything is optional here, right? Because a cloud ALM or SAP is trying to do that. It is giving you that flexibility, right? It could have, right, I mean, as with some other tools or some other places, there are some entities or some fields which are compulsory, right? You have to fill it up, right? So but here, except probably description, name, all the other fields are optional, right? Correct. So obviously, right. So but this has to be, it could, but it is a good practice in the project that you follow that, okay, you decide beforehand, again, not in the middle of the project, but because again, you'll have to go back and again redo things, right? Again, probably if you decide, okay, in the middle of the project that, okay, no, we want to filter it out with work stream or maybe work stream. So then again, you'll have to go back, put all the work streams, assign work streams to your user story, to requirement, to whatever entity, right? So it has to be as a best practice. You have to decide. Yeah, but that could be, yeah, means you can say it's but one time overhead, right? That, okay, you have to decide. There is no mandatory fields which SAP cloud ALM has given, so we have to make it not mandatory, but we have to follow that, okay, these fields we will mandatory follow in our project, so that we have a, so everyone is following the same same standard, right? Otherwise some team is following something, some team is following something different, right? So you will not be able to get a correct picture, right? So obviously you can get a picture, but let's suppose you want to see it from work stream level, or someone wants to see it from the solution process level. So if you don't assign this solution, it's always better, yeah. If you know this user story, it is coming from a solution process to a requirement, and eventually to user story. So probably you will have to assign it manually. Obviously, if you create, like in the previous example, I created the user story from the requirement, right? And from the solution process, we came down to requirement then user story. So it automatically took the solution process, right? Like we create test case from the solution process, so automatically that test case gets assigned or gets has a relation and gets assigned under that solution process. Similarly thing happens here, but as you have seen, we can create separately, standalone, right? You can create a feature separately, and you can create a user story separately, and then you can assign them, right? Within a requirement or within a feature, right? You can do that, right? So in those matter probably would be difficult. So again, as it you can decide it how you want to do it, but that has decision or the guidelines, right? Like you have in most of your project, you would have followed a simple guideline of how do you name your transports, right? How do you name your transport requests, or how do you name your the document, the FSD or TSD? There would be a, right, or even for the FSD there would be a content, right, that will follow this format for FSD, this format for TSD, or we'll follow this approval process, or no, how do, right? Similarly, you have to we have to set initially during the onboarding of the project, or at least in the prepare phase, that okay, because by now you have come to know, okay, now what are the things we are like project, like you probably will have only one project at one project, or maybe one project, two three smaller, two three projects running at a time.
Hey, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training? That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features: bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
So then for project naming also, probably you would, when that is one or two, so that is fine, you don't have to put a naming convention on it. But for other things, right, like a feature, a requirement, you would except it would be better if everyone accepts that okay, we'll follow a standard naming convention. So those things you are going to set up, right? Or like you have, right, you like when we start a project, you create a holiday calendar, leave calendar, right? You're just setting up a process that okay, well, so that everyone has this visibility, right? Otherwise, other how will you do that, right? And everyone, like the everyone will inform their leads, right? Then the lead can't track everything, and then lead will tell it to the project manager or the PMO team. So they, how they track it, so they use the leave calendar. So in that simple terms, in that similar terms, you have to set this up. Maybe obviously one time, you just have to decide one time, okay, how do you want to go with different entities, which fields we have to fill, which fields we don't have to fill, right? As I mentioned this also, like requirement, how do you create the requirement? Whether it would be created, means in ideal situation as SI partners, you should be creating the requirement. And it also helps in because when you are doing the workshop and you are creating the requirement, so you put in your understanding, so then client can review it, and then they can and then you have a better understanding, right? So in most projects that is how it was, but in some projects, as I said, nowadays many of these core companies are onboarding their own IT team, like like process owners, business owners for running this transformation projects, as for a big project which are multi-year projects. So they do onboard external consultants or full-time employees, but on their side, just to have a put an overview and have some, because they don't know much, or someone is moving to SAP, right? The customer is moving to SAP, has some legacy system, they are moving to SAP. They are not much aware of SAP. They are aware of the processes, but how those work in SAP. So they sometimes onboard a team, just to help for the transformation project. They could be external consultants. You might have worked, external contractors, external, but working on behalf of the customer. So in some cases, they create the requirement, right? So all of this has to be defined. Okay, who's going to create the requirement, how the approval process is going to work, naming convention, right? And which fields we are going to fill up when we are creating a user story or feature, for that matter, a requirement, right? Even for a requirement, right? So these all things we have to decide beforehand, right? Because if you start in middle of the project, if you come and you have not put any no guidelines for the team to follow, and then everyone, because everyone will have their own understanding, right? If some will say, okay, no, we should have a work stream. Someone said, okay, we no need of work stream, we just go by the responsible person. So then it's fine. Responsible person is part of OTC team, then it is part of OTC team, or the responsible person is from P2P teams, and then okay, there's a P2P, and then like that we can bifurcate, right? But so some teams, we lose. So eventually, when everything comes together, because project is going to get delivered by different people working across different teams, right? And each team will have their own, right? Like each team will have their own stand-up call. So each stand-up call is different from the other. You run it in some other way. other team runs in some other way. It depends on, how the team members and the work stream leads, right? The work stream leads, how they run it. So it is like, even it's they are doing the same thing, same structure, still it becomes a bit different. The structure of the call becomes different. Like if I run a call, I would run it in a separate way. If you run it, you run it. Because even if we are following the same structure, right? Even if a Scrum calls, if we follow it, it depends, right? Because people react to things differently. So it could be like this. So just to have a industrialization, that okay, everything is standardized across the project. There is no ambiguity. You should have guiding guidelines, right, for each of the. And yes, you have to think, okay, for because there are many things. And few of the things I can list, so like how do you the naming convention for each of the objects, how do you create the requirement, right? What would be the approval process for the requirements? For requirement, probably you will have some documentation which needs to be shared. How do you share that, whether email or again SharePoint, right? Documents, how do you are going to go ahead with the documentation, whether you are going to use the document app of Cloud ALM or you are going to go with SharePoint, because document app currently doesn't have the feature to upload the documents directly, right? Then how are you going to create your features, right? Are you going to create the feature once the requirement is approved? And then who is going to create, right? And then again, for feature, how do the status is it like till production? Like till production, it is with the work stream, with the SI partners, that they will do testing. They can change the status. They'll move it till production. For production movement, it will be with the with the SI partner, with the customer. I mean, obviously you are going to provide all the testing documents, everything, but even the actual change of status would should be done by the customer side, business process, business process expert owner, right? So though there are many things, everything, but you have to decide it, right? Because in the last page, even if you don't decide one of things, it is going to create problem later on. Even like for test cases, right? Cases, naming convention, test plans. How do you want to create your test plans, right? Do you want to create your test plans based on work streams or module wise? Obviously, you will probably will create test plans for your different testing iterations for UAT, for SAT, for FUT. But apart from that, also probably you'll have to create test plan based. If you want, ideally means ideally you should have for one business process requirement, one test plan. So like you can test that requirement as part of one test plan. Or if one test case suffices, then you can have one test case. But in all probability, you will have to have multiple test cases for testing one business process, because one business process will have multiple entities to it, right? It could be you're checking no, anything, right? So in that matter, you will have to so then that also you have to decide. But probably test thing related could come a bit later, because you are not going to do anything from a testing perspective. When you are preparing, probably during realize phase, you are going to onboard your testing team, or during start of the realize phase, because so that they can help with the testing. But so that can come later, but that still has to be decided. Then the release, the release planning. How do you want to? How will the release planning work? The deployment, right? How it is going to work? So all of these things we have to decide beforehand, right? So that there is no ambiguity and everyone is following the same standard. So there is no not miss, but you have you have the correct view, right? In that way, right? So that is one thing. I'll just even close it. So I have created, one is open, one is in progress. Okay. So like this, you can see that, okay, for this requirement, user storage project. So it's still like probably again, you could mention this is wrong, but I'm just saying that, okay, the requirement is in testing, but it's still, the user storage is open. It means at least it should be in progress, or the user storage should have, changed to, how do I put it? Changed to, it should be, even is to user storage at least should be in progress, right? If it is not, it can't be open, right? If testing is started for the requirement, it means the user story has been worked upon, right? So then that view also, and you can come and change it, right? So these all things, right? If there is any ambiguity in the status, right, that you can do, right? Okay, change this, save. I'll just go back. Okay, so user story at least is in progress, right? Just to come, if you see it's in testing, but you see there's no test plan, there's no test cases, right? Means at least a test case should be, should have been there, right? Even the test execution probably, in testing means, okay, it is ready for testing, right? You can say that, but at least if it is in testing, maybe, or if it is testing now, you have to start. We are already delayed, right? Because obviously you are supposed, or you should plan that your test cases are ready before you reach the testing phase. Otherwise, you are going to lose time. Like you are ready for testing, you have moved your feature, you have done done your development, but now no, the test cases are not created. There's no test cases, right? So then you are going to lose time, right? So and these can, again, these tasks can run parallelly. You can work on the development and the testing team. The testers can create their test cases based on the inputs be provided by you, and going through the FSD, TSD, right? So again, that another planning that you have to, some tasks probably would have to do it sequentially, right? Like obviously the once the requirement is finalized, only you can start with the your development, right? So that is sequential. Well, like parallel, as I discussed, like, even if you, when you are in development, you are in realization phase, you can start with your test preparation, right? You, in the sense, like the testing team, obviously with inputs from the work stream lead, for a particular case with the developer, right? Okay, what needs to be exactly developed, right? So that can run and should run parallel, so that you don't lose time between the two phases, within its development getting complete and ready for testing, but your test preparation is not done, right? So then it will take again some time for the test team to create test cases. Again, your test cases, in some cases, it again, the test case also needs to be approved from the business. Approved in the sense, they'll say, okay, yeah, this is what, yeah, this is fine, whatever we are testing, it is fine, right? So that has to be again be approved, right? That test case also needs to be approved, right? For this particular requirement, this is the test case we have created. Means even if it's obviously test, even if it's not the external approval, in the sense the customer needs to approve, but somewhere someone from the functional team developing needs to approve it, that yeah, this test case fine, because tester would create, he or she will create based on his or her understanding of the process, right? And from her his past experience. But every project is different. Even the business process being same, it could be different in a sense, maybe the just the legal entity is different, maybe this country is different, right? So maybe there are some minor changes, right? So that you have to take into consideration, right? So those things you have to, so this view. So here in requirement traceability, you have that view as well, right? You can see what is missing, what is not missing, what is in progress, right? So, and obviously, as you can create user story traceability, and you can see the status. Yeah. Okay. If you see, I have a user story. The user story status in progress. Requirement status is testing the requirement which is assigned to this, or the user story is assigned to this requirement, and there's a test feature which is ready for production, right? There is a test preparation. The test case is prepared, right? The concept for the second user story, this user story is in progress, requirements are testing, but there is no feature, right? Yet. So probably you, from here you can say, okay, we have to create a feature. How did the requirement reach testing, right? If the development, because without a feature, you will not be able to move your changes, right? So how did this happen, right? So probably it's like that. It could be that the developers are working, they have created their own transport that they're working on it, but for documentation purpose and for even for movement, because you are following the cloud ALM process to movement of changes. So for that also you need to create a feature. You can't manually move the transports and then start again. It will break the cycle, right? Break the process. So in that matter, you have to make sure that mm, that okay, maybe a feature has been missed. So probably you'll go and create it. I'm just taking an exceptional example, but it could be, right. So that these things you can figure out from here, right? From the traceability path, you can figure out what is missing, what is not missing, whether the status are correct or not, right? Concern in that, right? Okay, so we have requirement traceability. So if you say, it gives you traceability at four levels: solution process level, requirement, feature, and user story. The solution process gives you the complete overview from, that would the starting point. Requirement is like, what actually we need to do in the system, right? Feature is the, the entity which actually through which we are going to move our changes, or to eventually the goal is to have it in production, right? The all the and so feature gives that. User story again gives us the overview of how do we achieve this all, the requirement work and get it done through a feature, right? Okay, so development system, quality, and production. So what is the deployment status? Development quality, because we have this is again picking up from the deployment plan. In our system groups, we have only development quality and prod. You could have another fourth system pre-prod as well, but then you have to see how do you means move the change, right? So it is ready for production, right? Feature. If I go to this feature, so ready for production. Confirm deployment is once it is confirm. You have to come and manually confirm whether okay, it has been confirm it deploy. It is deployed successfully in production, right? So that you have to do manually. Obviously, in some cases, it could be that you want to move it back to implementation and do something like, because it's still not moved to production. It could be some additional change, something, right? So you can have feature see at the deployment stage. Obviously when you are in project, you will have hundreds of features, right? At least to work with, right? So you can have it based on the deployment status of that feature, whether they are deployed or not, right? Whether and whether the it's in where in development, quality, production, all in development, quality, open, right? Whether they have failed, right? It could be transports failed, right? With RC8, or there's a transport failure, transport did not move, right? So in that way you can see, right? And again, open in development, quality, production, all done in, right? Like all done in development means all the transports, all the features which are done in development, that has moved, it has been handed over to testing, right? And open in development is still in still in development system. I mean, probably they have not, it's like it's still in the implementation phase, right? So that you can again from the feature status, in specification, implementation, in testing, ready for deployment. So all of these you can see again based on the releases also, you can have that view, right? So feature gives you the same again from a user story perspective, you can have it, right? So feature traceability is similar to how we have done with requirement traceability and solution bus, right? Then finally the user story traceability. Okay. So again here more or less same, like where you can filter out, the user stories based on scopes of my scope, what is how many user stories are there, what is the status rate for the test preparation, test execution feature. There is no feature for maybe the first user story, right? So probably we have missed it, or no, it probably it could be that feature, you don't require a feature probably because it's means how do I put it, and probably an IT requirement like setting up a printer, right? For setting up a printer, probably you are or some config, which is probably you have to do it in the system. You're not going to move do it. Now there are some configurations or a printer setup, you can't move it through the transport, so probably you are going to do it, just a user story has been opened so to track it, but there would not be any feature. There could be a requirement where there are no changes, or there are no changes which are supposed to be moved, or can be moved through transports, right? It is like you directly, like client settings, you have to open the client and do those config directly in the system, in development and in quality, in production, right? So then it doesn't require a feature, but there is some work, right, which is like non-transportable. So for that you can create a user story and probably a project task on it. But even for a user story, you can create subtask and then you can track it from there, right? So it is not like every requirement would probably have a feature or would have a changes getting moved via transports from from development to quality to production, pre-prod, in between. It could be, right. So there are administrative tasks, right? Different tasks, right? There are configuration which we need to do. It can be done only manually, right? So for those, don't need a feature. So you'll just create a user story for tracking, because obviously there is an effort in that, right? In that user story. Obviously, if you want, okay, there's no development piece, so probably I'll not go with user story, but I'll create only a a task, a project task, or a sub task, then whatever it could be, right? So you can create the requirement, right? And then you can work through it, right? So just concept. It's not like every you have again, as I said, everything is option. It's not like every requirement or a user story has to have a link with a feature. No, it's not necessary. Like, and again, a requirement has to have a user story and a feature and a project. There's no technical limitation on a technical constraint that no, you have to have it. No, probably you don't have it, right? You just want to. So I had a question, I think, in some one of my sessions, that okay, if the same, like we gave a demo to SAP, the customer, and they're happy with the SAP standard, so we don't have any development to do, right? So that's fine, but you'll have to do some configuration. If there's no development, so probably you don't, you can go without a feature, right? But probably you'll have to create a requirement to, note it down that, okay, for the customer agrees that they are going to go with the standard, right? And then you probably will create a project task just to, set it up, right? Yeah, obviously you'll set it up in development quality product. There's no other chain, no development required, no, requirement, or then we are not going to develop anything, no, not customize anything. So then fine, we don't go with even with project task, sorry, with a feature, or we just create a requirement to document that requirement that we are going with the standard, and you can, and then create a project task for that, okay, for the work, right? Because somewhere there is some effort, right? Even if it's minimal, or the minimum available, but there would be some effort, right? Even if so, 1 hour or 30 minutes, or there will be multiple teams. With even like suppose you have to set it up, you have to get access, right? So there is that effort that you are going to request the access to the security team. Security team has to set that system for access, identity and access management, right? As part of your security policy, how you want to do, right? So probably you'll have to do it. If it's a cloud solution, then again they have to set it up. I am in BTP, right? And then they can do it, right? So then there's some effort, right? It's not like without effort you're going to just set the standard config in the system, right? So in that way you can have user story or a requirement for that matter without a feature, right? But it is obviously at least requirement means, again, it is not hard and fast. You can go without requirements. So, but then how do you track, or how do you document something, right? If you don't have a requirement, right? Because even it's if in as simple terms, and it is still a requirement, right? That okay, this that no custom required, we'll go with the standard one. So even for setting up the standard one, some effort is there. I'm not saying probably you don't have to do anything, just have to probably activate these services. I don't know, I'm just taking an example. I think probably you have to do, but still probably access, activation, or onboarding, right? Let's suppose in Cloud ALM, for onboarding, like if you want a Cloud ALM tenant, you already, let's suppose you're already using. So the only thing you have to do is you have to request, place a request, and within 15 minutes, your tenant will come to you, right? Now, nothing you do so setting up your Cloud ALM tenant, you didn't do anything, right? Let's suppose you have to install let's suppose if I'm talking of for an on-prem system, you want S/4HANA system. So the server team will provide servers, the basis team will set up your how do you put it, the system, right? They'll install the system, update it, right? Security team will apply the security policy, then they will start, right? So, but let's suppose for a cloud solution, it is very simple. If you already have a BTP account, you have a BTP tenant, what it just take like, at least for cloud element, takes 10 to 15 minutes. Within 10 to 15 minutes, you'll get your tenant, right? But even there is that little effort of work, right? That you have to request that, right? It's not like you think it, you have discussed within team, and then SAP comes to know and they give you, right? You have to request. That effort is also there, right? So that effort has to be documented somewhere, right? Because you're putting effort. Or even if there's no effort, means obviously there won't be any times where there won't be any effect. But even let's suppose there's a require, you started with business process, and then eventually, as per the workshops, you decided, okay, no, this business, this solution process is not needed, because probably it is getting covered in some other process, or we'll cover it by some other, right? So even then, if you're not going with that particular, as part of workshop, you decided, okay, we're not good. So even then you have to, create a requirement. We are not going ahead with it. Create a requirement and change it as now not planned or block something, right? But you have to again document that, even if there is no change, means you have to document that, right? So in that way, then that requirement will have nothing, right? Because that will stop there itself. Requirement, then this process is not needed. Yeah, but you have to document it somewhere, right? But that was how we like run down the line. Let's suppose whoever did that workshop, they move out, or someone else moves out, but the project has to know, right, what happened that time. So for that, you have to create the requirement, right? Correct. So from that perspective, at least requirement, you should have it. So okay, we went through the user story testability, then we have to test execution analysis and defects for test purpose, right? Because again, in any testing, or in the testing results or testing reporting, becomes very important, because more or less it is never, starts, no, it's like because you are at the, end, not end, but at the, maybe you are in your, pre-climax of your project, right? So there is a lot of rush. Many things have gone correct. Many things are not going correct. But so there's too much pressure on testing to get it, and business, especially, the client customer are very, sensitive to testing. Like they want testing results to be, completely fine, all good, right? So they like to hear what is the status of your test case, whether it is going as planned, there are no failures, right? And obviously and the another thing with the testing completion is that it is dependent on, like in realizing that when you're developing, it is dependent on how much time you take, right? But in testing, probably if you complete a test cycle, it is a, collaboration between the testing team and again the functional team, the development team, because there will be defects, for some there will be, there would not be any project, which passes the test at one go for all the processes. Obviously for some it will pass, for some there will be defects, and then defect will have to be worked upon by the bug issue, will have to be worked by the function testing, where they don't know how much time, because because that this effort has not been estimated, because you can't predict on what issue is going to come. Like when you're developing a custom thing, at least you and okay, this I have to develop it, create a form, a new UI, maybe a Fury catalog for Fury, few tiles catalog, okay, create a new screen or customize the existing SAP screen. Okay, so you can effort estimate it. Okay, this will take probably 8 days, 10 days. So then you obviously take buffer, right? So then more or less you cover in that. But when you're in testing and when an issue happens and it comes back to you, first thing we have not estimated, right? We have not taken. And once that comes, you don't have an effort estimation on that because it's a new thing, right? So then it will take time. It takes time. So it is like, dependent. It's not like we'll complete the testing within, obviously when we plan for the testing cycle, we take that buffer hand that there will be a time for, working on defects, right? But it could be, it could be that some defects, go on for allotment, like multiple iterations, still the issue doesn't get fixed, right? You reach out to SAP for solution. Then once you reach out to SAP, it goes out of your hand, right? They'll take their own sweet time to, give you a solution, right? So in that way, testing becomes a bit critical in the sense that probably you might not be able to comprehend how many defects, probably, if I can say in layman terms, how many defects are actually supposed to, generate, and then those defects will take how much time, right? It could be, no, it could be that defects are, I'm not saying from because defects could be, from, it's not like only a, development issue. It could be the logic issue also. Okay, this is not is not working as expected based on the requirement, right? So again you have to go back to the customer, and again there are different iterations happening as part of the, the testing, right? And so that is one not problematic area, but that thing we have to take care. Right? So now in text execution within my project, so let's suppose want to see it for one of my test plan. Okay, so I have one failed test case, right? There are total three, four. One is in failed, three are initial, none have passed. Okay, there's one in progress. Right? So like this, you can see the status. Or you can see the executed manual test actions also, right? Okay, so this is taking the total, how do I put it, the total steps or actions, across my test plan, right? Which are pending, right? There are 492, right? Executed, I have, executed two steps, right? So it is like two executed steps are there. Still 492 are pending, right? And 492 reduced to 4. Okay, because I think I completed one test plan, one test case, so I think it reduced, right? So like that, it gives you the overhead. If you don't want to see, you can remove it, right? So it gives you from a step perspective, because in many projects use that, they want to have that view of, the total steps to be executed, how many steps, total test steps within all the test cases which are part of scope. Within that, how many test steps are there, and within those test steps, how many have been executed, right? So here steps are nothing but actions. So that view also you can view, right? The executed manual test action, right? So time frame you can choose, right? Time frame, scope, solution process, type manual automated, right? Then status initial to progress, right? We select So now you see total steps are 3000, right? 14 have done, right? Something like this, right? So you will see like total steps across your.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
Across the, obviously across the all the test cases, right? And again, it will count a test case. Like if a test case, as I've told you, test case, the same test case you can use as part of different test plans, right? You can assign the same test case to different, so that becomes a separate instance of that test case, right? So when it is counting, let's suppose you have a test case ABC and it is part of three test plans, and you have it individually also. Like it could be that there are some test cases which are not part of any test plan, right? So it is going to actually count four, when it is calculating the total steps, it is going to count four items. One for the test case, then the test case is part of three test plans. So two, three, four. So therefore, like if there are 40 50 steps, so that 40 will become 14 to 4, like 160. So one test case is contributing for it, because that is right, you have created a test plan that is part of the scope. So as per the plan, means it means but what you are making test plans mean that you are going to run this test plan, right? So this test case is going to run as part of three different test plans, obviously, and individual also. So even if we don't take individual, even if it's going to run as test plan only, so you have three iterations, right? So it is like 40 120 steps, right? You are not going to like run it as part of one test plan and use the same test. You have to run it again as part of the second test plan, and once test plan one is done, two again, for third again you'll have to run that test case, right? So the same test case, but you're using it as different test plans. So it will contribute 120 steps to your test case, to your total count, right? So in that way, that helps. In that way, it gets counted, because each test case within a test plan is a separate instance, like a job runs separate instance. So it is a separate. It is not, won't count only like one test case. It will be counted as three test cases, right? So that's why your count increases, right? 3000 steps. You can have it in vertical columns, right? Another, so you can say, okay, you can have test cases which are not assigned to any test plan. So that also you can say, right? Because I have created, I think, 6 test cases, right? And I created 2 test plans, and in one I have assigned, no, I think created more than 6 test cases. But in test plan one, I have taken only 4 test cases, and in test plan two, I have taken 6 test cases, right? So, there are different. Those test cases are not part of any test plan, so they have their own entity, right? It's not like you cannot. It's not like you have to run a test case within a test plan. You can run it without a test plan also. There's no hard and fast. It's just that in any project, for the sake of simply for the sake of managing, you create test plans. Test, when in cloud, in solution manager, you have test package, right? And test plan and test package, and you assign a test package to a tester, right? Similarly here, if you have a test plan, test case, so you can group it, right? For one or more, for one module or one business, you can assign it to a tester, right? In that way, it helps, right? So, but it is not identifies that you have to run it every test. Test execution has to run as test plan. You can have you can only run it as test case, right? There could be a small requirement where you single test case is suffice, right? So you can use a single test case and complete your testing, right? So, but it is like SAP gives you that, or the solution manager also had that. You create a test plan, a test package, then assign the testers to the test package, not to the test plan. So again, here they don't have the test package concept, but they have the test case and test plan concept, right? And obviously, as I've seen, the test cases again, if are part of a test plan, Your test cases have to be prepared yesterday. Your test plan has to be, in testing, ready for testing. Then only you'll be able to see them in the execution field, right? Otherwise, it won't show up, right? If it is in preparation, it won't show up in your execution, right? So that is, yeah, we were in test execution analysis. So yeah, you can, have a view of your complete test execution from the test execution based on your test plan, your individual test cases, and based on status, and obviously based on the total number of steps which are in, as whichever you have selected. I have not selected anything. So for all the test cases which are part of test plans which are part of my project. So for that, there are almost 3,001, these many steps, right? Remaining, right? Total remaining actions. Okay. Executed steps, total remaining. If I remove this, so it will show me only how many 14 steps have been executed, right? But this parameter, this metric is very, sought after in, during testing cycle, like, okay, how many steps are remaining, how many steps are not only, because sometimes it's not, you also know from your experience that they, if even if you're not, if you want to see it at a test plan level or a test case level, that probably will not give you the correct picture, because there could be, you could have only 10 test cases, right? And probably within those test cases, the number of test steps vary, right? There could be a small test which is only, 10 or 20 steps, but there could be a bigger or larger test case which has 40, 50 test steps as part of it, right? Because each step is a step, right? Login, give your credential, then input the parameters, then execute this, and then you go, the whole business process would have a lot many steps, right? So then that doesn't probably gives a correct picture, because a smaller test case probably will take a day to complete, but a bigger which has many steps, there are, it would have more, right? So then probably people will say, okay, why we have not completed, right? We have completed test and two test cases since last 1 week, but we're not able to complete anymore, right? So then in that in that aspect, probably the total number of test steps to be executed gives a more better view that, okay, where the actual testing status is there, right? Because even at a test case level, you don't do anything additional within a test case or a test plan. Within a test plan also, you go to the test case, and within a test case also, you execute the test steps one by one, right? So is the test steps which are the main, right? And I mean, that is probably the main criteria based on which can have the best understanding or best status of where your testing is lying. Like if we just go by test plan or test cases, it won't give the correct picture. You could have test plan with four test cases, and there could be a test plan where you have only two test cases, but those four test cases within that test plan are just small ones, right? And within the other test plan, the test cases again are big ones, right? It has many steps, 100, 50, right? Because we have so many steps because we have used the standard SAP standard test case, right? If you remember, we uploaded it, right? So again, the standard one has these many steps. So even if you want to reduce it, probably you will eventually still come up with a big number, right? At least from the step perspective, right? And obviously, it's not like you have to like do all this stuff, but all is the whole activity is broken down in those steps, right? So it gives you that better view. And even in reporting, in most of the purchases, they have this one metric where total steps, total test steps to be executed, total test steps executed remaining, right? So it's there, right? So this is one another good metric, and this is very sought after metric. You must have seen your project, right? So it's there. I think so. Last one is the defects reporting, right? So again, along with the test execution, this defect also is very important, because if you see it from the life cycle, defect is the last piece, right? If there are no defects, it means your testing has been successful. Now you are ready for your production goal, right? You are for deployment, right? So if you could say this is the last piece or the last chunk of the whole story, right? If this doesn't fit in correctly, or this is not like, this is not zero, the defect count is not zero, you will not go ahead with, you still can go ahead, like you would have seen in your project that even with the go live, with the production go live, we go with some defects, in the hypercare, right? But as standard practice, that as it should be zero, right? Once there is no, at least there is no major defect still open which will hinder the go no go decision, right? So once that is done, as but the standard and the in reality there's a difference. So in most projects we do carry some defects from the project life cycle to the the hypercare, and in some case in the and at least probably in hypercare you have some debate, but probably you should have with zero defects. So again here you can see the history, right? Again you can see based on your scope, based on your solution process, right? If you've come and you want to see, okay, for my solution process, how many defects are still open, what I need to work at, that you can see priority, right? When you create a defect, you can give a priority to it, right? Then your defect status. So defect status, no, you have new, in progress, retest required, and close, right? I choose postponed. Again, postponed would you usually use, if no, it is like either dependent on some other defect, or probably you are going to test it later. Maybe you know in the sense like when you're creating, you are doing you're doing a testing and you realize that some inquality happen when you're doing an inequality, right? The quality, like, it's an integration piece, right? The testing happens, the test case happens across some system, right? It's for HANA, CPI, Ariba, SuccessFactors, right? And you see the Ariba tenant is not ready. Readiness says it has been onboarded, but probably the configuration has not started, the integration has not been done between, Ariba and success factor. So then probably you create a defect. It's an application issue or configuration issue, and you postpone that defect because you can't keep it in progress. Right? Then in reporting it will show. So you postpone it, that it is dependent on the the system integration being in place. So it would take some time. So you postpone it, right? So in that case, you can use the postpone. Right? Then you can use whatever time frame, maybe last 30 days, right? We did start on we created the first on 14th only, right? And we created and we close it, right? And then we have two, right? One is closed, two are in progress, right? So this again you can see, created versus resolved, right? How many have been created, how many have been resolved, right? Right. Created resolved, total remaining, right? So you have, so this you can say, okay. And the table we also, when it was created, right? We created first on 15 March, then 14 March we created two, one is resolved, right? So total remaining, right? Like that you can see, right? So obviously when you have a large chunk of defects to work with, you will have, this becomes very useful, right? You can just come and see, okay, how many, like from a project manager perspective, you can just come and see how many defects are still pending. Okay, what is the status? Why it is in progress? Why it is not moving? Why, since when it is, since when it is in this state, right? So that you can do, right? You can see in the time frame, okay, since in last 7 days, what was the trend, analysis, trend analysis, that how many defects were getting created, maybe within last 30 days or the whole life cycle, right? And based on scope, or you have tags, right? You can create tags for any of the entities, right? So you can create tag with this defect is for UAT, this is for FUT, this is something on that line. You can create tags, or you can create tags for means if it's a configuration issue, all the configuration you use a tag, like config issue. For application you use a application issue, or coding you use coding, or logic, something you can create your tags. So it becomes easier for you to filter it out. Okay, filter it out based on your requirement, right? Because there will be many defects, and again that has, you can decide it. Or if you are the tester, you want to say, okay, whether my defect is ready for testing. So you can, whenever you are creating a defect, you can tag it, right? Or test your name, right? Defect created by Ratan. I'm just saying, taking example, and then probably when you come, you can just filter it out better. You don't have to do anything else. Just you can filter out by that tag, because you have created and have assigned that task to all the defects you have created. And then you can see, okay, whether my defects which are ready for retest, right? Once it is ready for retest, you have to go and retest the test cases, right? So that you can check, right? So in that case, test case happens. Or now if you from the functional team, so you want to say, okay, how many, because since as you have, because yeah, there is one limitation that, yeah, because since now, or as of now, you can only tag, or have a relation with a test case or test plan to a solution process. No other entity, no requirement or user that is planned, that they will allow you, like how you can within a requirement you can tag a feature, user, story. Similarly, for a test case, test plan, they will have that feature that you can allow it. You can connect it to a like existing solution process, and going forward to a feature, to a requirement, right? So right now, that's why it is not showing you. It only has the option to that through solution process. You can come and go, what is my business process? You can filter it out. But no. we did not assign any of the defects to solution process. But once you assign it, you can see it very well here that how the and from you from your solution perspective, from your for your business perspective, how many defects are there. Okay, and what is the status of those defects, whether whether you have to follow up anyone, or it could be that you see there are defects which are in retest, and testing team is delayed or is taking time to it. So maybe you can follow up with them, right? Or ask the test manager that my defects are in retest, but the testing hasn't happened yet. So those kind of things you can do. It will give you the complete view that for your whichever for your business process you are responsible, whether you can see what is the defect status, right? The complete defect status starting from the start date till the current date, right? So yeah, for that you have to make sure that when you're creating a defect or the tester is creating defect, they follow that they have to assign within that the solution process, or they assign the exact solution process, right? So that you have to do, right? You can say like say okay, but probably we did not assign any, but we did create directly. I'm just thinking that we did create directly from the test case, so it should have taken the. Okay, I'll check on it. So what I was thinking that we had created some defects directly from the test case, and the test case has that relation to solution process, so it should show up here, but it is not showing. Probably it doesn't that it doesn't take it doesn't inherit the solution process, but ideally it should take that. Okay, I'll check that. But we did create some defects from the defect tab, right? So there you have to assign it manually. Okay, this is part of its solution process, because otherwise, there is no other way to. Obviously, you can use tags because you don't have any other entity to filter it out. Otherwise, obviously based on status. But if you have to filter it out, for which solution process, which requirement, so that requirement feature user story you cannot do. You can only do it for solution process now, as of now. So probably it would be better that if it, said that guideline that okay for all your defects when you are creating the defect, make sure you assign the correct solution process, and that they can the tester doesn't have to know everything. They just have to go check the test case, and there in the test case, and obviously as practice, the test case also have to be related to the solution process. Like earlier in solution manager, you had that like you'll upload your test cases in the in the business in the solution documentation under the business process, so it automatically picks up like because it becomes an element or a node for that business process only. Test case FSDs, right? They have their once you upload it, that relation automatically creates it creates an ID, right? So that relation automatically creates there. So even from the test case, when you create a defect, it will that relation will be there. You will be able to okay, that defect will also come under for this business process how many defects are created, right? But yeah, that is not currently in cloud, but obviously that will not come completely. But yeah, like as I said, they will probably bring requirement, user story, another entity, so that you can release, and then it would be become much easier for to find out, filter out, trace your defects. So in that way, so obviously until that, probably you can use tags as a tags is a good option, right? If that if you want to filter out maybe for a requirement or so that, then you can probably create a tag and keep assigning the that particular tag to the defect which is there, right? Probably like let's suppose you get a defect, right? It is which requirement, so you can tag it to that requirement or to that feature, right? You can create a tag, right? Like the requirement name, something so, and then the user story, and then maybe you can filter out because you are creating. So that option is there. But apart from that, you can only filter it out either from the statuses or from at a solution process level. And for that also, you have to make sure that when you are creating the defect, your solution process, you assign, you have that assignment, that relation for the defect and solution process within that. Okay, so that is one thing. Okay, so there's one small thing which is like cross project overview. So it's like so if you remember when we were creating projects and deployment plans, right? So I did, mention that you can assign the same deployment plan to different projects, right? So this cross-project analysis is mostly to do with, where you have in your cloud ALM tenant, probably there are two, three, projects running, right? You could have that, right? Like you don't want the complete, how do I put it? The complete scope or complete, means in one project. may have divided into, maybe business unit wise, or you could do that, right? But most of the customers don't do that, or but you could have divided by business unit wise or module wise, maybe, or finance, you have kept it separately, the big modules, and you have kept it separately. But all of these will run on the same system, right? And they are going to run parallelly, right? So in that way you can have multiple projects, obviously with the same scope, multiple projects, but they might run. But this is a very rare case. But because what is the standard is, you have one project under which you run your project, and some smaller projects which have like a standalone deployment of maybe a small, maybe an Ariba or success factor, right? Which is, so usually this is the pattern which most of the projects follow. But yeah, the SAP, so Cloud ALM has that option, because some entities or some companies have that they run multiple projects, right? You have, so like I worked in a project where they were running 4 programs. We didn't have Cloud ALM, but they were running at that time. But they were running 4 programs, and obviously that was through Solution Manager. So we were supporting 4 programs through Solution Manager as well. Or you want 4 different business entities, right? Similar in that. So in that sense, when you have those kind of setup, then you can use project, cross project setup, right? So it is probably, you can choose. You see, it is giving an option to choose, right? So you can control. So it gives you which are your project, right? Which are, I don't have any. I mean, I did not create others. So these two are created. So you can have the cross project analysis for 2 projects, right? For all the projects, or you have you have a deployment plan shared across some projects. So then you can have through that for HANA, right? And again, if you remember, when we create a deployment plan consists of a system group and a timeline or release cycle. So you could, for okay, the release. Okay. So I had, if you remember, I had one. Okay. Okay. So probably there are, okay, 1 sec. It's not showing me anything. Okay. If you see solution process by project, so it has 22 design phase, because we did not move in CALM. We have six solution based timelines. Okay. Consider what are the timelines. So if you say there are different timelines for, so this cross project view you can have. Like if you have more than one project in your project, I mean in your scope, you could use it, right? If you want, break it down the complete project into, maybe for business unit wise, or for global and for local template, or for different business entities or country wise, right? But it becomes a bit, it again depends, if you can run it. So well and good. Obviously it is, obviously, managing a bigger project and running, if you divide it into smaller projects, and if you're happy, obviously you'll need a more set of hands. But probably the managing it from data, it becomes easier in the sense that, obviously, right? So in that way, it depends on how you want to run it. But Cloud LM has that option that you can run multiple projects, and this cross project analysis gives you that for cross project, okay, for this project, what is the, because there will be some overall program manager, or it could be that you are, the same team is working across those 2 projects, right? Because same is, more or less, if it is business unit wise or main, the same, business, or there are some changes, right? But there would be some, like suppose for a payroll perspective, like, it would be there. But country wise or business, or maybe say country wise, there will be some difference, right? So probably the same success factor team, payroll team is going to work across those 2 projects. So you can, have a view, okay, those 2 projects, how they are, what is the status of each of those projects, right? So that is one thing, right? So you see the status here, project readiness, okay? So not assigned. Yeah, sorry. So we did not assign anything to the release, so that's what I'm showing. So you see 579 is like the combination of these 2 roadmap tasks we had selected. So it is showing 579 roadmap tasks, right? 2 are done, project task 5, 1 is done. USD 7 are done, 7 are there, none is done. The solution was 28 in total, right? None of them have been like completed or realized, right? Been moved to production, right? So like this, you can see, and obviously you have a deployment plan, you can use it, and you can see only, like, if you only want to say, one. Deployment plan perspective. Okay, I've used the same deployment plan. Okay. I thought I had assigned different deployment plan, but I've used the same deployment plan. So I was saying, like, if you have, you could have, different deployment plan. Like, maybe I've taken two projects. There could be, 3, 4 projects, and there could be two deployment plans. Like, for each project, you have one deployment plan, and maybe you have one deployment plan across the, like this. I have one deployment plan for both these projects, right? You could have different deployment plans as well. So it would have shown here that the two deployment plans. Since I have the same deployment, it is showing one. So from a deployment plan also you can see, right? With deployment plans will come this, the timelines, right? The timelines it's picking from the
Exactly.
deployment plan, right? If I have to write like this. So it is just like, again, if you have multiple projects running in your project, you can do a cross project analysis. Okay, for your projects. This is process hierarchy assignment is like, if you have process hierarchy, if we have not, if you create a process hierarchy and you go with it, you can see the assignments here. Again, it is a cross project, because you can have the same process hierarchy used across, like, that's an entity which you can use across projects, right? So this you will show, but you can from here you can go to the process hierarchy app, and if you want you can create. Yeah. You remember we create, like, to start with a process would be, the starting node, and then it will have sub nodes. So as that, as a child or as a sibling, right? There could be some process which are at the same level. So you create a, as a child, as sibling, it depends, right? So that you can see. But again, it probably when you are using cross project, that helps with this project hierarchy assignment. Like this, within your different project, how the process hierarchy assignment works for you, right? Apps, you can create your own view in any of those, in all those, landing pages. You can create your own views. You can share those views with others. They can also have that view. If you want to know everyone to have that same view, so, or you can create a tile. Now you can create a tile and maybe it will show up at your in your home page. We created, it's gone, is it? Probably it's gone. Like, you can create, a view, and you can, like this I can create as a tile, right? So you can, like, testing cycle overview, you can just save it, and if you come here, okay, my home, I created it. So you see, you have this testing cycle overview. So like this, you can create a view for your, within your project, right? So that helps, so that everyone has that same view, and no one is like deviating from there, right?